welcome and good evening, and welcome to COS Indiana Live. We are glad to have everybody joining us tonight and your viewership on either YouTube or Facebook Live. We hope that you are preparing for a wonderful week with Thanksgiving ahead, and we look forward to bringing you another great program, as Dale would say. And as you can see, Dale is not with us. We had half the team here has had a little bit of a technology bug, and that happens to be an internet service problem on Dale's end. So we are going to have to go it alone tonight. I'm going to have to solo and bring you the program basically on my own tonight. So it'll be a little shorter of an entry here, but I guarantee you we have a great show prepared for you tonight. We have a wonderful guest, and I think that you'll really learn a lot and be enlightened by bringing on our guest tonight. So we'll get into that a little bit here shortly. As you can see, we are COS Indiana Live, and normally I would be co-hosting, and Dale would be interviewing me, bringing me on right about now. But we do want to make sure that tonight, if you have viewer comments and questions, that you can go ahead and put them in the chat. I might not see them as much as I normally would, because that's normally what I do. I normally keep an eye on comments and the chat box. So even if I don't see them tonight, we will reply to your comments or questions using our email address of basically raise your voice cos@gmail.com. So you can also put your questions there. We'll be glad to get to them. Dale would normally at this time be talking about the number of the amount of programs that we've been doing, and this is actually number 175 of his broadcast that he started a number of years ago. And the number 43 is mine. That's the amount of shows that I've been on with Dale, and I've enjoyed working with Dale as a co-host. So coming on and soloing tonight is something that's a little not normal for me, but at this point, put up with me, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy my guest and the rest of the program tonight. So I did want to take care of a couple of housekeeping issues, and that is coming up on the 28th, we have our roundtable edition, which will be the fourth Monday of the month. Where November went, I couldn't begin to tell you. It's just flying by like the rest of the year. So roundtable coming up on the 28th, which is next Monday. Also, I want to let you know that we also have introduced two new podcasts. One of those is the Roundtable, and Voices is our very newest one. The Roundtable obviously is a replay of our Roundtable, the audio portion of our Roundtable show on each Monday of the month, fourth Monday of the month. And the Voices is a brand new podcast. We are delving into the many talented and interesting people that we have come across here in Indiana and joined Convention of States, who have some very just a lot of talent and a variety of diversity that we have come across here in our grassroots growth. So we look to spend an hour or so with each one of the ones that we bring on to give you a little more depth and insight into the many of the people that participate here with us in our volunteer programs. So that will continue to be out. You can find that on Spotify coming up shortly. It should also be found on places like Google Podcasts and other podcast developers there, or ways to get a hold of that. So as usual, our monthly theme has, or at this point, our yearly theme has turned out to be, what activism can I take in COS? As many people have joined this year due to the, well, let's just say that the many things that we have seen in America here in the last couple of years that have actually prodded people to get up and get off the couch and get activated. We have been talking a lot about activism and self-governance and other ways that people can get involved, because I think I know in my own situation was very, very dutiful, if that's an actual word, dutiful. I participated in the vote. I mean, I started my first election, and I'll probably date myself, but that's okay. My first election was 1972. And I've been voting ever since, both locally for midterms as well as every 4 years our presidential election. And it got to a point for me where, I faithfully pulled the lever, but in return, I never saw any change, really. Outside of maybe some in the Reagan years, I really didn't see much happening. It seemed to be a battle that has gotten worse as far as what one hand and the other hand are doing, and they both seem to give you lots of promises and really don't come through on much of any of them, other than what they would like to do to promote their own party. So I got involved in Convention of States in 2016 and haven't looked back. It's been a great experience to actually be able to do more and feel like what I'm doing actually can bring a result, and a constitutional one. I think that was the thing that finally convinced me that it was time to get involved and get off the couch and do something, because I wanted to do something. I didn't want to leave anything behind that my grandkids and my kids and my grandkids would have to suffer through. I want to leave them a better America than was left to me. And I think a lot of us feel that way. So I'll get off the soapbox now and move along to the rest of the show. But wanted to give you some insight into Convention of States and why we're here trying to build the biggest grassroots army in the nation, and we are succeeding. So we have passed 19 states, and we have 2 or 3 more that could be coming very soon next year. So we're a little over halfway there, and that's inspiring. So. With that, I will take our activism banner down and talk a little bit about our guest coming on. Our guest tonight is going to be Tiffany Justice. She happens to be a co-founder for Moms for Liberty, and I can see Dale misspelled moms. I'll have to get on Dale for that. He's got Moms for Liberty, but it's Moms for Liberty, and we are excited to have Tiffany on tonight. I think she can talk to us a lot about some of the things that we've gone through here just recently concerning running for school board. And she's a person that will tell us a little bit more about her own experiences in getting involved in school boards and what we can do going forward to continue to see improvement in our local schools in dealing with our children. Because at this point, I think, to be honest, I think we've been behind the 8 ball on education, and we have a lot to do to catch up. But I think we've had a good start this year. So with that, I'm going to skip down here. We've got a couple other things that we might get to later on. You raise your voice, that will come along. I will bring that up. And before we go ahead and bring on our guest, I will show you, let me go ahead and show you tonight's QR code. So if you have your smartphone, I will go ahead and bring this up a little bit here so we can go ahead and you can get all hooked in for the polling that we will do here in a little bit. And as you can see here, the code there is a QR code which you can use your smartphone to come into. And also, if you're joining by tablet or by computer, you can go to slido.com and enter the number 1599778. So that is what we have for the Slido tonight. So let me get back here to where we're at, and that is the code. And I want to make sure we saw that. I didn't come up right away. So there's the code and me alone on the side. Slido.com. And again, get your smartphones out, hit the QR code, and you'll be off and running when we decide to bring up the Raise Your Voice segment. So enjoy that. And when it comes about. And right about now, I think it's a good time to go ahead and bring up Tiffany. Tiffany Justice, welcome to the program. It's good to see
Hello.
you, and I
Thank you
appreciate
for having
you.
me.
Oh, we're glad to have you on. I've looked forward to this all week after we had a little chance to talk a little bit, and I'm excited to hear more about what you have to tell us about the organization you and your co-founders brought to us. brought to America at this point. As I understand, you are nationwide, so it's always exciting. And I know that we talked a little bit about what we have done here in the state of Indiana recently with some local school board elections. But why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started and a little bit about your story?
Sure. Thank you for having me on. I'm sorry that Dale couldn't join us, but I'm happy to see you. And I'm excited to talk to members of the Convention of States in Indiana because I recognize you as fellow warriors in this fight to reclaim our country. And we, Moms for Liberty, was started by me and a woman named Tina Deskovich. We both served as school board members in Florida. We didn't really know each other. We found each other during COVID because we both were on the downside of many votes when it came to parental rights and the role of government in our lives. And so I'm a mom of four and married to my husband, Mark, for almost 20 years. And our kids are the ages like 17 to 11.
Wow.
So the oldest is a senior and the youngest is in fifth grade. And so I've gotten a good glimpse at public education. Tina she and her husband together have 5 children. They have 1 child together and then children separately. And she also has gotten a very interesting insight into public education. There is nothing like unpacking backpacks and then going to a school board meeting that night. And you get to very directly see how the decisions that you make as a school board member affect the teaching and learning that happen in schools. It is like nothing else that I can possibly tell you to be able to see that as a consumer and as someone that is making decisions as a school board member. And so Tina and I decided we watched during COVID. There were a lot of people that were standing up that had not stood up before, who were very concerned about government overreach. And we were very proud and excited to see so many parents standing up across America. They were starting groups, they were trying to gain momentum, but the school districts were picking them off one by one. And we saw that it was very difficult to stand up a structure of a 501c3 or a 501c4. And that a lot of people, first of all, it takes an enormous amount of intention, it takes money, it takes time. And these were parents who were juggling, many of them, by the way, in my hometown, a nurse who started the Moms for Liberty chapter there, juggling a full-time job as an essential employee.
And
And children
that
who,
was Indian River County, is that right? You were
yes,
in
sir.
Brevard County, Florida, the two of you?
I was in Indian River. I was in Indian River County, Florida. Thank you for reminding me. So I'm in Indian River County. Tina is in Brevard County. We're one county away from each other. And we were really at the heart of the parental rights movement, and Florida leading the way during COVID in making very bold decisions. But we worked with the governor very hard. So Tina and I are on school board. We recognize there's an issue in public education. Parents do not have a seat at the table in the way that they should. There were a lot of people that had undue influence in your children's education, like teachers' unions, amongst others, some bureaucrats we can talk about. And we said, okay, we need to try to help these parents to organize because they're not alone. They may feel alone, but they're really not alone across the country. And we were watching, and then as Florida schools restarted and we went through that process, we were watching as so many schools weren't restarting. And we had the evidence in Florida to show that it was safe to reopen schools. We knew that. We had the data to support reopening schools. And we wanted to make sure that every parent had access to that data and information, and we were supporting them to help their schools reopen. It took longer than it should have, but we are proud to say now it took longer to reopen schools. Moms for Liberty has done well.
I'd
We
say.
now have, we have 250 chapters in 42 states with over 110,000 members. And, people ask me often, how have you grown so quickly? We are moms. We are right there with all of the other moms in this fight. We have our own children. We saw firsthand what was happening in education. And we had the added benefit of having served in elected office on school boards. So we saw very clearly how the bureaucrats and the politicians aligned against the people and often abdicated their authority, the elected officials, to bureaucrats who were making decisions, and there was no recourse for the constituents. On my own school board, we have a saying at Moms for Liberty: we do not co-parent with the government. We will partner with our children's schools, but we do not co-parent with the government. And just to give you an idea of what that school board experience was like for me, I sat on the school board and looked at the superintendent and made that comment. I said to him, "Sir, you cannot enact a medical committee in our district to make decisions for other people's children. We do not co-parent with the government. You don't get to pick a doctor to make decisions about the health and well-being of my child in these schools. You'll have to invite everyone's doctor, everyone's pediatrician to come and survey the educational situation for every child, and then make a recommendation to the parent. And guess where the decision still lies? With the parent."
With the parents. Now, did you get a lot of pushback, or did you get any response at all from a superintendent at that point?
Well, I was at the bottom of a 4-1 vote. It was a hard decision to make. We were very excited about the fact that Governor DeSantis agreed with us. And our Moms for Liberty started in January of 2021. I wanted to take you back to March 13th, 2020, when the world stopped for kids.
Right.
If you look at the date where most schools stopped, it was March 13th, 2020. And school systems are like a cruise ship. They do not start going fast and they do not stop easily. Right. And so I remember standing there and going, whoa, we're gonna close schools and we're gonna go to virtual learning, but we don't have one-to-one devices. Not every kid has a device. We have no roadmap for what this is going to look like. It was a scary time. And there were a lot of unanswered questions. But again, as I said, in Florida, we got to see that there were schools that stayed open. Boys and girls clubs stayed open. Daycare stayed open. We got to see what it looked like for children to still be in an educational space and how they were able to mitigate COVID.
You certainly were among the luckier ones, obviously, in the country, to be able to witness that. Obviously, that you could see that there was a difference, and yeah, I mean, while everybody else in the country was struggling with being locked down and all that you were talking about, and again, I think it didn't take too long really for some of the studies and some of the doctors pushing back, saying no, wearing a mask 8 hours during the day is not good for human development, or especially a child's development, and the restriction.
There are still articles that come out. I think Time just published a piece about masks not being bad for kids. We know that's wrong. As parents, we know that's wrong. We had the American Academy of Pediatrics telling moms that babies didn't really need to see their faces. Moms know that's a lie, right? They don't need some doctor to tell them that their baby needs to see their face. They know what their baby needs. And so really that's where it came from. It came from this idea, and I think a lot of your members will understand and recognize the fact that Americans stopped trusting themselves. American moms stopped trusting themselves. They wanted someone else to give them an opinion. But then when they started giving us these opinions, we were like, well, this can't be what's best for my child. They can't play outside at a playground. We have to wear, all of the things, nothing made sense, right? So we start Moms for Liberty January 2021. As I said, we've grown quite a bit. And just to be clear, we are nonpartisan.
I was going to say
nonprofit.
Yes, nonprofit, and there's nonpartisan like COS. I mean, that's our same goal. To be a nonpartisan group, basically fighting for constitutional rights and our freedoms. So.
And we fight for fundamental rights. So we're a nonpartisan, nonprofit, grassroots organization started by 2 moms, now 110,000 strong in 42 states, and we fight for parental rights. And I would like to share.
I understand. You have 8 chapters here in Indiana. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. We do. And I just want to be clear about what that means, what fundamental parental rights, what a fundamental right is. So as a parent, you have the fundamental right to direct the upbringing of your child. That is a right that the government does not give you and they cannot take away. There are a few of those. And we focus on parental rights. So our mission is to unify, educate, and empower parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government. Unify is important because no one can do this alone. At Convention of States, none of this happens alone. You need to build an army. Educate. We need to be educated on the issues. There is a real background in history to why we are where we are in America today. And we need to be aware of those issues so that we can combat them head on with the right information. And then empower. When you unify and educate parents on issues that are affecting their children, they are empowered. And there is no one that will fight like a parent for their child.
Yeah, that's you ever see a mother bear with her cubs? I think you know exactly what that can look like. Tiffany, I have there's been a question or a comment, and I have it brings up a kind of a question. As somebody who's obviously been on a school board and basically ran early on, how do you feel about the fact that that as somebody running for a school board, you don't have to associate yourself with a party? Do you think that's important, or is it something that I mean, I think the problem is, a lot of times, at least if you're identifying you're a Republican or a Democrat, it gives you some idea about the person's kind of their background a little bit, or what kind of where they might be leaning. So do you have any thoughts on that, or how do
Yeah,
you
I'm
feel?
happy to speak about that. First of all, one of the things that teachers unions have made sure to do is make sure that school board elections are not on cycle. So school board elections happen all year long, all over the United States of America. So Moms for Liberty endorses only in school board races. We're building out our PAC right now, and we are going to be very focused, because a lot of times you have elections happening in May in New York for school board, or in Wisconsin, or in other places. They are not on cycle. As far as school board races being nonpartisan, it's an interesting thing. I mean, people say they're Democrat or Republican. How much they stay with that, actually, you hear a lot about, Democrats in name only, Republicans in name only.
Right.
We really feel like we have something called the Parent Pledge. If you go to our website, momsforliberty.org /pledge, you can check out the Parent Pledge. That's for people to stake their claim, to show where they stand on parental rights, regardless of party. I think anyone can register as any party. I'll just speak from my own personal experience. When I ran for school board, I had no party affiliation up to that point in 2016, and everybody said to me, and that wasn't because I mean, people said you need to register. You need to register. And I said, well, if I'm looking on the issues, I'm going to register as a Republican, because I identify more with Republicans, but I'm an issue based voter,
Yeah.
and I'm not about the person, I'm about the issue. And, a lot of time with politics, it's very team oriented. There's a person, you have to identify with that person and supporting that person. And I'd always kind of been uncomfortable with that. But I did register as a Republican because people asked me, people said people are going to want to know, are you a Democrat or a Republican? Where do you stand? And I didn't have a problem doing that. I would just say that you can register as whatever you would like, but actions speak much louder than words. So I
Well,
would very much look at that first.
yeah, I know each state is different. I mean, here in Indiana, that you really don't have to, you don't have to register either way. I think what a lot of people struggle with, just the normal voter, and I think I hear a lot of people talk about this on exit polling and what have you. People will go into the booth and they know if it's a presidential election, obviously they know about the president and all those people that are running. Your higher positions are more searchable. But I hear people kind of complain that or don't even do the research on somebody running for a school board. They get into the voting booth and just, okay, well, I saw that name on a banner, I'll vote for her, or I'll vote for him. So I guess one of the things that we did here in Indiana, I know we talked a little bit about, was we put out a survey and we specifically located the four places that we had our own COS volunteers that were running for school board, and we put out that survey in order to and we did it to cover all the people that were running, and everybody got that, so that we could at least answer some of those very important questions concerning CRT and a lot of the other issues that people felt we needed to know how you would vote once you were a school board member, and at least get your opinion on that. And of course, we got a lot of no opinions back, but we also did get opinions. So
Sometimes
you know
no opinion tells you more than an actual opinion. So
it
I
does.
always, I appreciate that, I think your survey was awesome. I got to see it. I thought it asked some great questions. So what I would say to you is that we only endorse in school board races, Moms for Liberty, because we recognize the importance of your school board. Your school board is making decisions that impact your community and the families in your community more than maybe anybody else in your entire state. and they have a lot of power and influence as to the direction that the educational establishment in your state takes. And so we are chapters vetted in candidates. So we not only help to find candidates on the ground, but then we went through a vetting process similar to your survey, where our chapters had a questionnaire that every candidate was asked to fill out. And then we went through some additional vetting endorsement process, whether it was an interview process or a forum or a debate. And then the chapter did a formal vote on who they were going to endorse in their county, in their district, in their county, I would say, because we're set up by county. They have a number of different school districts within certain counties. Some have many, many, many.
I see.
Very interesting statistics, sir. We endorsed in 270 candidates on November 8th, but over 500 overall within the year. Of the 270 candidates that we endorsed, 76 were first-time candidates.
Wow, that's a great number.
It's a great number. We won about 50% of the races across the country. Some people have said, oh, you only won 50%. I'm excited. I was still celebrating 270 endorsements and the fact that we got through that process, because this is a learning process for all of us together, me included, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In Florida, we endorsed in, I'm going to mess up the amount of races we endorsed in, but we won 80% of the races in Florida, and we only put $50,000 behind the races in Florida. So adding, but to be fair, we did have Governor DeSantis helping with some endorsements, which was always nice. But I think we've brought, to be fair, and I love Governor DeSantis because he's stood for parental rights, not because he's a Republican, but because he stood for parental rights. He put his money where his mouth is on that issue.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is we need governors endorsing in school board races. We need to know who are these candidates that the governor endorses, because the governors understand the power of the school board, right? They work within their state. They're the leader in the state. The school board works very closely with those constituents. And so it was an interesting dynamic to have. Well, we won 80% of those races. So if we can get to where we were in Florida, winning 80% of races that our moms are endorsing in, that's just magic. Yeah.
That's a great number, and it's a huge percentage. I mean, when you think of 80%, it blows my mind. But yeah, I mean, and I agree with you. At this point, I think having a governor in your state, get behind that is crucial. The other thing I was thinking, obviously is going forward on this. Do you see any other way? I mean, other than getting governors and other people, do you see any other way of expanding the knowledge of people that are running for school board to get that out to the public, so that more people do get to know and before they go to the booth know what each person stands for? Do you see any other things that you have in mind to bring that about?
Yeah, I think, again, awareness on the whole in the state is very important. I also think that people running for state house, state senate, and for Congress need to be highlighting school board members that they work with in their area who they feel are making a difference in a positive way about parental rights. I want to be clear for a second. We talked about Governor DeSantis. We talked about some other, you think about politics in general. The issues we're discussing, this issue of fundamental parental rights, is not a partisan issue.
No.
And there are people who would like to make it partisan. There are people who would like to make everything we do partisan. There are people that want to divide our children on school based on politics, based on race, based on religion. And our goal, the future of America, rests on the fact that we cannot be divided, that we all are together and respecting each other. Now, there are some things that are happening across the country, gender ideology, for one, that I would, speak to, that I understand, that we have some abuses going on in our country that have yet to be recognized as abuses. And so we work in service of making sure that we protect children in many different facets. But the bottom line is this: I don't have to agree with you to respect your right to parent your child as you see fit. But you can inject a worldview into the classroom that's antithetical to the worldview of the parents. And that's what we have happening in America's public schools. We have kids not learning to read and a worldview being injected into the classroom that is antithetical to the teaching and understanding of many of the parents. And unfortunately, that's something that we have to address head on.
Yeah, head on is right, because as I think I mentioned early on, I believe we're behind the eight ball. I mean, I think this has been, this has been going on far too long, and it seems we are just waking up to this in the last couple of years. The curtain's been pulled back, and I think many Americans are waking up to that. But yeah, it's when you see how far this has gone. And again, as you mentioned, there's even more, I think, that we are learning every day. Yeah, we have our work cut out for us, and we do need to make grounds in this area of protecting our children. So, yeah,
I have
I
a
know.
couple action items. If you have any interest in a couple things that people that are
Sure.
listening that are involved, a couple things, especially even in the last few days that have come to light. There are organizations, nonprofit organizations in your community that are receiving funding from your school district. This is called taxpayer-funded philanthropy. You are paying your property taxes. Probably about half of your property taxes go to education, public education.
Correct.
And there's a portion of those tax dollars that are being funneled into activist organizations in your community. Now, for another time, perhaps a roundtable, I can talk about the WISC model, the whole child, whole community, whole school model that the CDC is pushing right now. If you want to look into it, look into it. If you want to contact me, you can. We can discuss it more. But definitely look into it. But you need to understand that the public schools are being used to change our country in a lot of different ways. The children are being indoctrinated into the schools, but then there are also organizations, nonprofit organizations that receive funding from your school district. And they say it's working in service of students, but there are a lot of people that are benefiting from your tax dollars, your philanthropy, but you're not choosing how you get to spend that money in service of the works that you want to see happen. That's an important point for your members to know, people of action. You can do a public records request and ask your school district. What nonprofit organizations are benefited by the funding that you receive? That's a question you can ask. Yeah. That's an important question you can ask, because what you may find is that there are a number of organizations that your tax dollars are going to fund that you may not feel comfortable aligning with. And that's important. We need to have your voice heard in that.
Yeah, it fits right in with the finance, the financial area that obviously COS is fighting so important for. We just feel that it's being abused, and and again, we should know where every dollar goes. So a lot of that really does need to be followed up on, and I think that as Convention of States, as one of our fiscal responsibility segments, we are looking to rein that in on the government. And again, I know we've talked a little bit about it. The Department of Education, it does not make any sense to have the states, send money to the federal side of things just to have it come back to the state. And of course, then once it does that, you're owned by the federal government and the Department of Education. We also talked a lot about unions and just the fact that they basically own our teachers, unfortunately, in a lot of our schools at this point. So there's a lot that has to be cleaned up, and I appreciate all that you've brought forward that way. I think we certainly do want to have you back on a roundtable, because I know there's a lot more to this than we can cover in just tonight's short segment. So we really will look to get you and hopefully your other half there to be involved in one of our roundtables, because I think everybody would like to see you back for that.
Wonderful. So there are 92 counties in Indiana. We are set up by county. There are a little over 3,000 counties in the United States of America. If you head to our website, momsforliberty.org, you're going to see a big map. I want you to click on Indiana. You're going to see that we have, I think it was, did you say 8? I think it's about 8 counties in your state. We have Boone, LaPorte, Howard, Tipton, Hamilton, Warwick, Cass, and Allen. We need a chapter of Moms for Liberty in every single county in Indiana. And let me explain to you why.
Sure.
So you need to be the watchdog. You need parents to be the watchdog, community members. It doesn't have to be parents. You can be a grandparent. You can be a dad. I know we're Moms for Liberty. We're Moms for Liberty because moms rock. If you're a dad, you know moms rock. We do a lot of
It's
stuff,
true.
super important stuff, right?
Yeah.
We really do. Moms are to be celebrated, and we should always respect the role of the wife and the mother in our family structure in our lives. Moms are really fantastic people who dedicate their lives to their children. They truly do. We need a chapter in every county so that we keep that watchdog. We need to watch the district. Our chapters come together every month. They have a chair, a vice chair, a treasurer, and a secretary. You need to have 10 like-minded members. So go to Moms for Liberty, check it out. If you don't have a chapter in your county in Indiana, click start a chapter. Start going through the process. See if you like it. Talk to some of the people. Maybe you're not the one who starts the chapter. Maybe you learn a little bit more and you think of someone else, or you bring it to someone else, right? Who might be interested in starting it. Maybe you bring it to your church and you speak about it. Who knows? But, push it out. Once you have that chapter going in your community, you're going to see where our moms celebrate wins, big wins, small wins. Sometimes it's a worksheet in the classroom. Sometimes in Berkeley County, South Carolina, they fired the superintendent, the in-house counsel, they banned critical race theory, and they came up with a procedure and process to deal with the books in the libraries that were pornographic in 2 hours. 2 hours they did that. So just imagine what you can do in your community by helping to get the right people elected that can make good decisions. By the way, if you look up that situation in Berkeley County, what you'll see is that the school board fired the first Black superintendent. That's what they say in the articles. I want to make it clear. They not only fired the first Black superintendent, they hired the second Black superintendent within the same 2 hours. So don't believe the hype. Always do the research, always look to read the story, because the media has a game that they sell. They have a playbook that they're going by. And most of the time they're going to try to hurt anybody that doesn't align with their narrative. Right.
Yeah, right.
So you have the chapter. Our chapters then in a state come together. And when you have enough chapters and your chapters feel comfortable doing this, we help to support them in a legislative committee process. This is how we change the country. We gather people together across the state, much as you do, right? And we bring them together, and then they have legislative people that serve on the legislative committee from each chapter. They go over all of the bills that are proposed. They make suggestions to policymakers. They help to find sponsors for bills that they would like to have supported. And then they follow that bill from the inception point all the way to vote through the subcommittees, because legislators can't do it alone.
No,
There's just one person, right? They need our help. They need an army behind them. And what you're going to see is the fact that this layered approach really does help to shape your community. And the last thing I'll say, Ken, Andrew Breitbart is famous for saying that politics is downstream from culture.
Yeah.
Culture is downstream from education. The education system in America, K through 12 and higher ed, has been captured, completely captured. And we need to reclaim it, because our country will not move forward in any way that we have any remembrance of any basis in our founding if we do not recapture and reclaim public education and help to move us forward. And we need every single person that cares about this country to be a part of it. So my last statement is this: everyone has a role to play. I promise you that.
But speaking of roles, I did have a question that popped up from our viewers, and you've already hit on a lot of this. But is there anything else you can add when one of our members here, Susan, says, "What can parents do if their school board endorses non-family positions?" And I know you've hit on a number of these things. Is there anything else you can add to that?
Yeah, I think first of all, you need to document it. You need to be very clear about when they endorse a non-family position, who is endorsing the non-family position, what the non-family position is, and then you need to write about it and get it out there. You need to, Moms for Liberty chapters, we've developed a network with different journalists and lawyers so that when different situations arise that are of concern, that we can move to litigation, right? There are a lot of different ways this work needs to happen. There's policy work that needs to happen. There's litigation work that needs to happen. Occasionally there's a case in some of these school districts. So come to Moms for Liberty. If you're in Indiana, approach one of the other chapters that currently exist. If you have something happening in your district, they'll try to help you to get some information about it. We try to get the word out. We have to publicize this stuff. But then you have to keep receipts. The most important thing I would say is go to your school board, speak out about it, tell them that you feel this is a position that they're taking that is adverse to the family structure. Remind them they don't co-parent with us, that they don't raise our children.
Right.
But then also keep receipts, because school boards change over every 2 years or so, sometimes every 1 year in some places. So the bottom line is, there isn't a lot of recourse you have with once someone has been elected. Your recourse is going to be at the ballot box. So
At
make
the
sure
box.
you're going to make the case. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Well, I know you've been on a number of programs, and I know that you have a vast experience dealing with a number of different broadcasts out there. So we're really elated to have you on the COS in Indiana tonight. And I know we're going to try and have you back for a roundtable at some point. So I know we'll back and revisit this again in a longer segment. I will also say I know we received a number of things from your office concerning statistics and some of the things that you have done. We will get that out to our people at another time, and probably be able to bring that along at the next roundtable as well that we do with you. But so we will inform everybody about that. I think our two groups together can do a lot of good, and we are looking forward to supporting not only Moms for Liberty, but we could use all the volunteers we can get here as well in COS. So I know that a number of your fighting moms are have some extra time and might be able to help us out as well. So I do thank you for coming on tonight, Tiffany. And it's been educational, and it's gone so fast that I wish we had more time tonight. But we do thank you for coming on, and wish you the best going forward.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you to all of your warriors. We are joyful warriors at Moms for Liberty. We will fight like heck with a smile on our faces, because we know our kids are watching, and we know you are warriors too. And again, it's going to take every single one of us working together, but hope is not lost. You should be very hopeful and energized. There is an entire generation of American moms and dads that are fighting for the survival of our country.
I think that group is bigger than a lot of us realize. A lot, the sleeping giant, I think, is bigger than a lot of us realize, and it's just coming. I think it's just coming to fruition now. So I think there's a lot more growth ahead, and we do appreciate everything you've done. So thanks again, Tiffany. We'll see you again.
Thank you, Ken.
Bye-bye. Well, folks, what can I say? It's she's a wealth of experience and knowledge, and we certainly thank the Moms for Liberty for joining. And as she said, I mean, we have eight chapters here in Indiana. Go to momsforliberty.org. It's .org, not .com. So momsforliberty.org. We will get some more information out to everybody. And of course, if you have additional questions, you can go to Raise Your Voice, COS@gmail.com, and send that up. I think I have the Raise Your Voice email there somewhere. I'll find it here. Here we go. So Raise Your Voice at COS@gmail.com. And I think right now what we'll go ahead and do is we're going to pull up a contributor segment to give me a chance to grab a little water, and we'll be back after that with some more news tonight. So this is our contributor, another one from our famed John Aukerman.
John Aukerman for Convention of States, Indiana. Somebody wrote, I don't know who it was, so I can't give credit, but I saw this on the internet. If it's not yours, don't take it. If it's not true, don't say it. If it's not right, don't do it. I say the amen to all three of those. And I imagine you do too. It's time for our federal government, state government, and local governments to start acting this way. And so I say to all elected officials, if it's not yours, don't take it. The money is ours. It doesn't belong to you, government. High taxation is not the American way. If it's not true, don't say it. I say this to all elected officials, federal, state, and local. It has become so easy to lie. somehow the fact checkers went away on January 20th, 2021. I don't understand it, but they went away. And so I implore all elected officials, if it's not true, don't say it. Leave the lies behind. And if it's not right, don't do it. Government, federal, state, local, there is a right and there is a wrong. And if something's not right, don't do it. To kind of put these three things in the positive, if it belongs to someone else, leave it alone. If it's true, say it. If it's right, do it. And that's all I have to say about that.
Well, John always has some perfect timed contributor segments, and we appreciate John's segment tonight. Right versus wrong. So with that, we're going to go ahead and let Marengo introduce our Raise Your Voice segment tonight, our polling segment tonight. So we'll just let Marengo take it from here.
The segment that features you. Scan the code and join the fun. It's your turn to be heard.
Well, I know a few people are asking what that email address is again. It's raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. We'll run that banner again here shortly towards the end of the program tonight. Right now, we're going to go ahead and get our Slido up tonight and get that tab going so that we can go ahead and well, there it is. That's our QR code. So you got your smartphone, you can scan that QR code or jump into slido.com and put in the numbers 1599778. That'll get you into tonight's polling, and that will help the questions tonight as we will do that. So let's get back to the Slido tonight and get our first question up. So first question is, would you agree that for decades, Indiana's state and local governments have been growing increasingly dependent on grant and subsidy funding from the federal government? Yes or no? Would you agree that for decades, Indiana's state and local governments have been growing increasingly dependent on grant and subsidy funding from the federal government? I don't expect a lot of no's on that tonight, to be honest, but I do need to put that up because we may have viewers on YouTube or Facebook that maybe are seeing us for the first time tonight and might not agree with that. So I always look forward to it, getting that question up there to find out whether we need to address that further. But obviously 100% people agree at this point that the grant and subsidy funding from the federal government puts us under lock and key of the federal government is basically what happens with that. So appreciate your input on that. We'll go ahead and move on to our second question because that was kind of an easy one. But based on our interview tonight, would running for your local school board be considered self-governance? This is probably another easy question, but I had to go with some easy ones tonight because, Dale has left me alone tonight, and I had to put everything in last minute. So hopefully he'll get his internet straightened out. He's having a problem with his actual service outside of his house, so that kind of has put him behind the eight ball tonight. So we're not going to put the blame on Dale, but his internet provider, they have some work to do. So everybody kind of agrees that self-governance would be considered something that you would do if you ran for your local school board. So I've got another one here that this might be a little bit of a stumper. I don't know. It's kind of maybe I won't call it a trick question, but who said the following? The person who decides what we're fighting about is the person who wins the fight. Was that General MacArthur or Donald Trump? Ron DeSantis? We talked a little bit about him tonight. Was it our own Mark Meckler, or did Dale Parrish say that? General MacArthur. Mark Meckler, 50-50. Let's see. Nobody voting for Dale? I don't know. I think I might have voted for Dale. Well, it's interesting. The person who decides what we're fighting about is the person who wins the fight. If you have listened to any of the battle cries by Mark Meckler, it is Mark Meckler. And we did finally get a vote there for Dale, but it was Mark Meckler who actually had that on one of his battle cries recently. So if you haven't tuned into a battle cry in a while, check that out. They are interesting, interesting programs. I think they all go on Sunday night, I think, is when Mark does most of those. But great segments that Mark puts on, and he has many words of wisdom. I always appreciate quotes from Mark Meckler. So hopefully that helped a little bit tonight. I think again, we will be trying to get Tiffany and back on a roundtable coming up. I know this upcoming one on the 28th. Let me see if I've got the banner for that. Our next roundtable podcast. Oh, that's the podcast. Okay, I'm still getting used to where Dale put all these banners in. We'll get that right. But our next roundtable is next Monday, the 28th. So be sure and join us on the 28th for our upcoming roundtable. And then we will keep you in touch with Moms for Liberty. I think it's, go to the website again. It's I don't have that on a banner tonight, but it's momsforliberty.org. Momsforliberty.org is that website. So then you can check her out there. And being that we are fairly close and still a little on the early side, I did want to throw in an extra video tonight. This was not on Dale's list of things to do. I just thought with Thanksgiving coming up, I wanted to go ahead and put up a little bit of a Thanksgiving type video. So this is for the upcoming week, and we'll talk about this when it's all done. But wanted to add this in tonight. So enjoy this, please.
And that's what Thanksgiving has come to mean to many Americans. Back in 2007, Seattle public school officials made national news by describing the holiday as a time of mourning and a bitter reminder of 500 years of betrayal. This new narrative describes the Pilgrims as arrogant oppressors who fled persecution only to become persecutors themselves, depriving Native Americans of their land and their lives. But this is wrong on every count. First of all, the Pilgrims didn't cross the ocean to flee persecution or even England. They'd been living for over a decade in Holland, Europe's most tolerant nation and a haven for religious dissenters. Free from interference by the Church of England, they feared seduction, not persecution, worrying that their children would be corrupted by the materialistic Dutch culture. That's why they risked their dangerous 1620 voyage to a wilderness continent, not because they were running from oppression, but because they were running toward holiness, fulfilling a fateful mission to build an ideal Christian commonwealth. They initially planned to plant this model society on the wild, wolf-infested island known to natives as Manhattan. But winds and tides blew them 250 miles off course, dumping the Mayflower on the frozen coast of Massachusetts. Somehow, the Pilgrims saw their dire situation as a demonstration of providential power, especially after a giant wave picked up the flimsy boat of a scouting party on a stormy December night. The turbulent sea then deposited them safely, miraculously, on a little island within sight of the ideal location for their settlement. It was a deserted Indian village with cleared land, stored supplies of corn, and a reliable source of fresh water. No, these supposedly cruel conquerors never actually invaded that village. Instead, they expressed a fervent desire to pay the natives for the dried corn they found, if only they could find someone to pay. But the former inhabitants had perished during 3 years of plague, probably smallpox, that immediately preceded the Pilgrims' arrival. One of the few survivors of that devastation turned up several months later to welcome the English newcomers. Against all odds, he proved to be the single human being on the continent best suited to help the struggling settlers, since he spoke English and had already embraced Christianity. His name was Squanto, and he had grown up in this very village before a ruthless sea captain kidnapped him as a boy and sold him into slavery in Spain. After 4 years, he was freed by kindly monks, then made his way to England, and finally sailed across the Atlantic, only to find his friends and family all wiped out by disease. Over the next few months, Squanto helped the English newcomers plant crops and negotiate a friendly trade agreement with the region's most important chief, Massasoit. No wonder Pilgrim leader William Bradford called Squanto a special instrument sent of God for their good. The celebration, later known as the First Thanksgiving, actually involved a 3-day harvest festival in October, apparently inspired by the biblical holiday of Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles. 90 hungry Indian warriors joined the 53 surviving pilgrims for this occasion. Nearly half of the colonists had died during the brutal winter. The Englishmen provided some vegetables, fish, and perhaps wild turkeys, while the natives brought 5 recently hunted deer as house gifts. The preferred sport on this occasion wasn't football, but shooting, with settlers and Indians sharing a fierce fascination with guns. Though these hardy pilgrims loom large in the American imagination, they never built their Plymouth settlement into a major colony. In nearby Boston, the later colony of Massachusetts Bay grew so much faster that it swallowed up the great-grandchildren of the Pilgrims in 1691. But the sense of purpose of the original Pilgrims left a permanent imprint on the national character. They maintained unshakable confidence that God protected them, not to grant special privileges, but to impose special responsibilities. They saw themselves as instruments, not authors, of a mysterious master plan. Today, with our continued blessings so obvious and so overwhelming, the only reason to treat this beloved national holiday as a time of mourning is that some foolish Americans actually think that's a good idea. The Pilgrims knew better. They understood that people of every culture and every era can gain more from gratitude than from guilt. I'm Michael Medved for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To ensure that millions of people watch this and other PragerU videos, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.